Hey, we're starting the last chapter of Trouble According to Humphrey, and it's called Home Sweet Humphreyville. Clang, 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 hear ye, the town of Humphreyville welcomes you. That was AJ ringing a bell and wearing a funny three-cornered hat. I guess Miss Brisbane picked him to be the town crier because he had the loudest voice of the class. It's 7 o'clock and all is well. Your tour guides will now show you around the town. After 2 weeks of excitement, and lots of hurried, scurried, hard work, parents' night finally arrived. I'm so used to being alone in the quiet classroom with Ogden weeknights with a visit from Aldo that it was strange but wonderful to see the whole room filled with my classmates' family. I knew most of them from my visits to their houses. AJ and all the Thomases, the Tugwells, Heidi and Gail and their families, the Ronaldos, the Patels, and all the Golden family except the dog, Clem. Thank goodness, including her mom, dad, stepmom, brother Ben, and stepsister Abby. Even Paul and his mom were there. The class had voted to make him a full citizen of Humphreyville. Each student got to be a tour guide, showing his or her own family the houses, streets, park, and yes, the statue of me. There was a pleasant hubbub as the family admired the houses. Funny, all these parents thought the very best house was made by their own kid. Hiya, Humphrey, a familiar voice said. It was Seth's grandmother, Dot LaRee. She was all dressed up and had bright red lips and fingernails. I hardly recognized her. Still the daring young man on the flying trapeze, I flung myself at my climbing ladder to prove that I was. After half an hour of oohing and eyeing over Humphreyville, AJ rang his bell again. Clang, clang, clang. Hear ye, clang, clang, clang. The town meeting will now come to order. AJ sure liked ringing that bell. He rang it a few more times until Miss Brisbane told him that was enough. She asked the parents to take their seats. Mostly they sat in the kids-sized chairs, though they looked a bit silly. Otto brought in some folding chairs, too. The students stood so the parents could sit down. Mind if I stick around? Otto asked. I'd be disappointed if you didn't, Miss Brisbane told him. The entire Payne family arrived a little late. Mr. and Mrs. Payne, Mandy, Pammy, Tammy, and Brian, of course. I thought Miss Payne worked tonight. Clang, 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 clang. AJ certainly knew how to get people's attention. Hear ye, presenting Miss Brisbane. The parents clapped, and Miss Brisbane came to the front of the room. It's great to have such a big turnout tonight. I know it's hard to get here after a long day, but I wanted to share with you all the work your children have put into their building and their own community from scratch. I think they did a wonderful job, don't you? The families clapped even louder. AJ clapped too, and dropped his bell with a large clang. Boing, boing, said Og. Maybe he thought the bell was another frog. Anyway, everybody laughed. Anyway, everybody laughed. Miss Brisbane said it was time to introduce our special guest, Mr. Dudley Dalton, a member of our own town city council. A tall, very thin man with a large round glasses, I'm going to start that one again. A tall, very thin man with large round glasses and a skinny mustache came to the front of the room. When the clapping stopped, he cleared his throat and pulled a piece of paper out of his suit coat pocket. Thank you, Miss Brisbane, he said. I am honored to be here to share this evening with these wonderful young people of Longfellow School. Truly, they are a credit to our community. He smiled slightly as if smiling hurt his face. Since we've had a look at Humphreyville tonight, I'd like to share with you some background about our old town and how it's grown over the years. Mr. Dudley Dalton unfolded the paper and began to read and read and read. Instead of reading something like a story, he read facts and figures, dates, and sometimes called statistics, which were harder to understand than the hardest vocabulary words we have ever had. All the parents and students tried to concentrate on what Mr. Dalton was saying, but he went on and on, and it was harder to pay attention. If only he made the reading of his statistics as interesting as Miss Brisbane makes her story sound. Soon I saw Seth start to fidget. His sister Lucinda gave him a hard jab in the ribs with her elbow, and he settled down again. Mr. and Mrs. Payne looked a little drowsy, and when I glanced at my friend Dot, I saw that her eyes were closed and her chin was dropping. Didn't Mr. Dudley Dalton notice that he was putting his audience to sleep? I guess not. since he never looked up from his paper, not once. Everyone tried hard to pay attention until Mr. Dalton got stuck on the word economics. It's a hard word, I'll admit, but when he said economics, Gell started giggling, and what's worse, Gell's mom started giggling too. Mr. Dalton corrected himself, economics, and that pretty much sums up the growth of this wonderful community that we all call home. He folded his paper, and everyone applauded, probably because they were relieved that he finished. When everyone clapped, Dot's eyes opened wide. Her head jerked up and said, "Oh," rather loudly. The applause had stopped, so Mrs. Brisbane asked if she had a question. Dot stood up. "Not a question, just a comment. Facts and figures are fine, but what makes us a community is people. And I've known some pretty good, interesting people in my lifetime here." "Mother," Mrs. Stevenson whispered, "sit down." "Grandma," Lucinda whispered, "please." All right, we're going to start right there, and we'll finish this chapter tomorrow.